We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. We have always thought of desire in terms of fulfillment, achieving, gaining, and getting rich, inwardly or outwardly. Hello and welcome to episode 119 of Urgency of Change. Season 3 of the Krishnamurti podcast continues with the format of carefully chosen extracts from the philosopher's talks. Each weekly episode focuses on a theme explored by Krishnamurti, and the aim is to represent his different approaches to these universal topics. This week's theme is fulfillment. Upcoming themes are health, Krishnamurti, and the psyche. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Please visit our official YouTube channels for hundreds of advert-free video and audio recordings of Krishnamurti's talks and clips. You can also find our daily quotes and videos on Instagram and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, which helps our visibility. This week's episode on fulfillment has 5 sections. The first extract is from Krishnamurti's 4th talk in Saanen, 1966, titled, "Is There Such Thing as Fulfillment?"
I want pleasure of different kinds. And I know, because I'm fairly intelligent, that it's going to bring pain. And I'm afraid of pain. But yet my mind wants constant pleasure. It's like a man who wants to fulfill himself through books, through literature, through painting, through music. He wants to be somebody. And he knows in that very desire to fulfill there is pain, agony, distress, fear and all the rest of it. And yet he wants to fulfill. So what is one to do? One has to inquire not how to be free of fear of pain, but whether there is such thing as fulfillment. You understand? Whether there is such thing as constant pleasure. You understand my question, sir? Not how to be free of pain, demanding pleasure, but whether in pleasure itself there is not pain. You understand my question? Right? Have you understood my question, sir? No. Look, sir, I want to fulfill because it's a tremendous pleasure. I want to be known. I want to be famous. As a musician, as a writer, as what you will. Because in that fulfillment there's great pleasure. Because I shall be known. My name will be in the papers and all that silly rot. It gives me tremendous pleasure. I don't call it silly rot. So, I try to fulfill, and there is somebody always better than me, somebody more, a greater writer, greater musician, and in that there is competition, there is pain. I have to play up to people, I have to be a hypocrite, I have to do all kinds of ugly things. All that brings pain. So I want to fulfill. In that fulfillment there is a pleasure, and at the same time I want to avoid pain. So what I have to inquire is, what am I fulfilling? You follow? What am I doing? I know the whole world worships success. You have money, you have position, you have prestige, you are somebody. Fame. And you say to yourself, is what? I know it's very pleasurable to be known to a lot of newspaper readers. It gives me, all the rest of it, but what? Is there such thing as fulfillment? And what am I fulfilling? And why do I want to fulfill? You are following all this? I want to fulfill, become famous, because inwardly I am nothing. I am empty, I am lonely, I am a miserable creature. And I put on all the feathers of fame because I have a little technique with a violin or with a piano or with a pen. So I am escaping from that emptiness, from that loneliness, from that everlasting self-activity and boredom in fulfilling, because I have a little technique. And therefore, fulfillment is an escape from the fact of what I am. Right? And can I resolve what I am? This ugliness, this emptiness, this self-centered activity with all its neurotic disease and demands. And when I can resolve that, I don't care whether I'm famous, not famous, fulfilling, not fulfilling. One is beyond all that stupid stuff. Then pleasure, thought, pain have a totally different meaning. One is beyond it.
The second extract is from the 7th talk in London, 1961, titled The Search for Fulfilment.
I think one can see very clearly that every form of disciplining, controlling, suppressing, or finding a substitute or sublimating perverts the beauty of desire, and therefore makes the mind and the heart hard, incapable of being young, swift. I think that must be clearly perceived. And is it possible, trained in a society whose values are acquisitive, whose religious dogmas and beliefs entail every form of twisting, suppressing desire? Desire obviously means comparison. And comparison, if one goes into it more deeply, leads to the desire for power. And you see, we talk a great deal about peace and love and all that stuff. Every politician all throughout the world everlastingly talking about this. His God, His peace and His love. And can a mind that has not understood the whole significance of desire, can it know what love is? And when desire is considered evil, the monasteries are filled with such people. All the religious people are holding on to themselves not to have any more desires. Or at least have one desire for God or for Jesus or somebody. Can such mind see the immensity of the thing, that word we call love? And if one sees the significance of all suppression, and therefore there is no longer suppressing or the urge to suppress or to transmute and all the rest of it, then what is one to do with the desire? It's there, burning, trying to fulfill, trying to speed ahead, identified with the big cars and the big houses and all the rest of it. It's there. What is one to do? I wonder if we ever ask ourselves that question. Or we are so used to control it, to shape it, to curb it. To give a ballast to it. Or to approximate it with something else, which is comparison. So can we ever stop that process? And it is only then one can ask, what is one to do with desire? I don't know if you get to that point, if you've got to that point. Which means really, can one live in this world without ambition? Can you go to the office and work without ambition? And if you did, would not your competitor wipe you out? And is there not fear that if there was no ambition, one would just fade away? So, do put yourself, if I may suggest this question, when do you ask this question? What to do with desire? Must you go through all forms of fulfillment with their frustrations and their miseries and fears, guilt and anxiety? And then only you will put that question. Or you may put that question only, or perhaps you'll never put that question, but only suppress it all the time. Because that has not given you happiness, possession, prestige, whatever it is. So you turn in another direction. The outward expression of it and the inward expression. When one is nobody in this silly, rotten world, you turn inward. But when you are riding this wave, you never put that question. And I think it is important, not only outwardly, for the well-being of society. I must withdraw that. Society is always corrupt. There's always the seed of destruction and deterioration in it. So you can't better society. You can perhaps gild the cage. But for a mind that really wants to find out, for a mind that is really inquiring, that wants to find out if there is such a thing as God, truth, and something with beyond all words, one must understand this thing called desire. Is it right to be desireless? To be without desire? And if you kill desire, that is, kill all feeling. Because desire is part of, feeling is part of desire. If you kill desire, there is no feeling. Feeling with all its extraordinary sense of, sensitivity. In that sensitivity, everything is, all qualities are included. So, if one has gone into this question of the implications of suppression, and therefore no longer suppressing. Actually, it's not suppressing. Not merely verbally mesmerizing yourself that you're not suppressing. Or substituting, or doing all kinds of things around it and in it. If you have gone that far and actually are not done it, are not doing it, which is quite an arduous thing, because part of this desire is discontent. Discontent with what we are. And back of this discontent is the urge for power to be something, to fulfill in something. And most of us are caught in this wheel of fulfillment and frustration. And the everlasting battle with self-pity. And ultimately, of course, there is the door to despair. Now, when one has actually seen all this, not take months, years, days, have a last fling at fulfillment, knowing that it's going to be misery, and yet keep on at it. To cut at the very root of all this. And let it wither away, because see it. See this whole content of our life. And then, if one has gone that far, or that near, then what is one to do with the desire? Is there any need to do anything about desire? You follow? If so far we have done something about desire, put it in the right, give it the right direction, the right slant, the right aim, the right end. And if the mind, which is conditioned, which is always thinking in terms of achievement, if the mind, with all its compulsions, training, education, and all that, is no longer shaping desire as something apart from itself, I hope you're following this. if the mind is not interfering, if I can use that word, with desire, then what's wrong with desire? Then is it the thing we have known as desire? You follow? Go along, sirs, come with me. See, we have thought of desire as fulfillment, as achievement, as acquiring, gaining, getting rid. In terms of ambition, in terms of fulfillment, in terms of avoidance, in terms of the more. And when you see the whole of that, then has desire, then the word desire has a different meaning altogether, hasn't it? Or the feeling, which we call desire, has a totally different meaning, hasn't it? You see a beautiful car, a lovely house, a lovely dress. Before there was the identification with that thing or the wanting of that thing. Thing or the idea, ideation. With its fulfillment, frustration, the whole social approach to existence, in which you have been brought up from childhood. You must be better than your brother or your uncle or etc., etc., etc. When one sees the whole content of this conflict and it's fallen away from your hand, then is desire something which it was? And realizing all this, is there a limit to desire? Or, I don't know what word to use for that thing which we have called desire. You see what has happened if you have gone into it? It is no longer feeling or thought. It is something entirely different, in which feeling and thought are included. Do go into... No. Because most of our lives are so terribly dull, routine, boredom, the horrors of our own existence we know very well, the mediocrity. and we haven't lived a day or a minute if we haven't understood some of all this. And therefore probably we are also terribly spiritual, mediocre, silly. So we come to this issue, which is really extraordinarily interesting if you've gone into it. That the thing that we have called desire, with all its corruptions, with its travail, with its miseries, with its suffering, with its impetus, with its enthusiasm, with its interest, and all that. And if one has seen the full depth of it, at one glance one can see it. You know, it's like you don't have to get drunk to know what sobriety is. In the same way, if one understands, one sees one fulfillment completely, it's finished, all fulfillments have ended. Every form of being, becoming, should be something.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's fourth talk in Madras, 1964, titled, In Fulfilment There is Contradiction.
Desire, which is the response of a sensation which has been given continuity by thought, seeks fulfillment. And in the various forms of fulfillment, there is contradiction. And out of that contradiction, there is conflict. And where there is conflict, there is effort. So desire breeds effort if we do not understand the whole process of desire. What is desire? And how does that desire continue? We see how desire arises. Perception, seeing, contact, sensation. Now what gives continuity to desire? That's the problem, that's where we left off the other day. Surely, thought gives continuity to desire. That is, I like something. It gives me great pleasure to look at the sunset, or to look at a beautiful face, or to see a man in position, status, with power, money, position, and all the rest of it. It gives me pleasure to be in that man's position. I think about that pleasure. Whether that pleasure be sexual pleasure, or a subjective pleasure, or an pleasure caused by outward objects. I think about it. I like your face. You've got a nice smile. And your smile, your face is attractive. I like it. I think about it. The more I think about it, the more I give strength to the desire which seeks fulfillment with that person, or through that idea, or through that object. So thought gives continuity to desire. If there was no continuity to desire, there would be no fulfillment. It would arise and go away. Please follow all this. It would come as a reaction, and you must have reaction. Otherwise you are a dead human being. It would come a reaction, and to that there would be no continuity to that reaction if there was no interference of thought. You observe it in your own life. You have pleasure, sexual or ordinary pleasure. You think about it. You create in your mind images, symbols, words. And the more you think about it, the greater the intensity of that pleasure. And that intensity demands fulfillment. And in that very fulfillment there is a contradiction. Because you also want to fulfill in other directions also. So, where there is fulfillment of desire, there is contradiction. Please follow all this. And hence, to escape from contradiction, from conflict, from the pain of conflict, you say, you must suppress desire. But what is important is to understand not the suppression of desire, or the shaping of desire, or the sublimation of desire, but what gives it substance, what gives it the intensity, what gives it the urgency. If that can be understood, then desire has quite a different significance. You observe, when you have the pleasure, you think about it. When you have pain, you also think about it. The thinking about that gives it vitality, gives it strength, gives it a continuity. So one has to go into the question of thinking. If we would understand desire,
The fourth extract is from the fifth talk in Ojai 1982, titled, Is Love Fulfillment in Relationship?
we're going to talk about together the nature of what we consider love. This has been a question that has existed among the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Hindus, and recently in the Christian world, and the Islamic concept. They've all preached, talked about loving your neighbor, and so on. This has been asserted religiously in all the countries. But apparently, we have never come to realize what it is. We talk a great deal about it. Books are written. But we have created a God, or gods, and we love that God or gods. We don't know exactly the nature of that beauty. So we ought to, though we went to it briefly the other day, we ought to go into this question very deeply. Is it mere sensory responses, sexual pleasure? Please, as we say, this is not a talk. This is not the speaker asserting any point of view, but we are together examining. Please, I'll repeat over again, together. We are inquiring into the nature of what one calls love. So one must ask oneself whether it is mere sensory sexual responses, which more and more in the Western world, as well, now which is creeping into the Eastern world, it has been turned into pleasure. Is love pleasure? A form of entertainment? A thing which demands some kind of sensory fulfillment? Is it desire? We went into the question of what is desire very carefully. How desire arises and the demand of its fulfillment. When there is no fulfillment, there is frustration and all the neurotic activities of unfulfilled desire. We went into that. It would be unnecessary if you come for the first time, and one hopes that you will not mind if you will not go into it again. So is love desire? If it is, then all the complications, frustrations, the demand of its fulfillment, with all the conflicts that arise. So is love conflict? Please, one must repeat this again. You are asking these questions, not the speaker. The speaker is merely pointing out which you are, which you yourself are examining. Not merely verbally, intellectually, as a thing of passing by, but actually in daily life. Is love a movement which has continuity in pleasure and desire? You are asking the question. And why is it pleasure has become so extraordinarily important in the world? The whole entertainment industry, so-called sports, and if you will forgive also, the religious entertainment, which is considered sacred. These are the various forms of pleasure. And so one asks, is love a movement, an endless movement of pleasure? Is love attachment? Attachment to a belief, to a concept, to knowledge, to a person, or to a symbol. If in attachment there is fear, there's all the agony of being alone. So if one sees the consequences of attachment, one is attached to the country, to the flag, as everyone in the world is doing that. The separative, symbolic flag. Asiatics have their own flags, to which they are terribly attached, as in this country, for which you are willing to kill each other, which is what is happening now. And we say that's a principle that a country which has become aggressive must be pushed back. And so we are willing to kill others. This has been the old repetition from the most ancient of days. And every religion, the most ancient ones and the recent ones of 2000 years, have always said love. Do not kill. But our pleasure overcomes this edict. So one must, if one is at all serious in our relationship to each other, man and woman, the relationship with the rest of humanity, whether they're black, white, or purple, or whatever color they be, in that relationship, why is there so much conflict? Is it that in that relationship we seek security, safety, and this search for security in relationship, is that, and naturally fulfillment in that relationship, is that love? So please inquire, let's inquire together into this question very deeply. If all that is not love, the attachments, the desire to fulfill, the urge and the fear of being alone, lonely, all that, if all that is not love, like jealousy, hate, arrogance, pride, all that is not love, can it be ended? This is really quite a serious problem. Because we never end anything, come to an end. But we want, where there is ending, a replacement. If I give up this, what will I have? So the question of ending a particular problem is really quite important. The ending. Because after all, as we're going to discuss a little later, the ending of life, which is called death, there you cannot argue, you cannot carry over anything. There is total ending of your memories, attachments, and so on. So one should inquire most seriously if there is an ending, not finding a substitution, not demanding a guarantee that if there is an ending of this, will there be that? So we ought to inquire very deeply, as we said, can all the things which are false, like pride, arrogance, attachment and the desires, pleasures and so on, which obviously are not love, can all that end? Because without love in life, the perfume, the passion, the depth of life is lost. Life becomes very, very superficial. Very mundane, worldly, which is what most of the world is becoming, more and more. Because we have never found out for ourselves what it is to love another.
The final extract in this episode is from the third question and answer meeting in Saanen, 1980, titled, Does Creativity Need Fulfilling?
Our life is in a turmoil. Our life is constant struggle. Nothing original. Nothing creative. I'm using that word very carefully. The painter, the architect, the wood carver, he may say, it is creative. The woman who bakes a bread in the kitchen, kneading it, say this is creative also. And sex is also creative, they say. So what is creation? What is it to be creative? You understand? The painters, the musicians, Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, and the Indian singers with their devotion. They say that's the act of creation. Is it? We have accepted it. We have accepted Picasso as a great painter, great creator, putting one nose in three faces or whatever it is. I'm not denying it or derogatory anything. I'm just pointing out. This is what is called creation. But if you inquire, doubt, question, is that creativeness? Or creativeness is something totally different? That is, you are seeing the expression of creativeness, right? In the painting, in a poem, in a prose, in a statue, in music, that is expressed according to his talent, to his capacity. It may be great capacity or a very small capacity. It may be modern rock or Bach. Sorry to compare the two. They are really quite incomparable, but it doesn't matter. So, and we, human beings, accept that as creative, because it brings you name, money, position. You are in the same room as the great artist. Right? So I'm asking, is that creativity? Can there be creation in the most profound sense of that word as long as there is egotism? As long as there is the demand for success and money, and the recognition of that. Do you understand? Then it is supplying the market. Don't agree with me, please. I'm just pointing out. I'm not saying I know creativity and you don't. I'm not saying that. I say we never question these things. There is a state. You can doubt it, but it doesn't mean a thing if you doubt it. It doesn't matter to me. I say there is a state where there is creation, where there is no shadow of selfishness. That's real creation, which does not need expression. It doesn't need fulfillment, which is myself fulfilling, or that fulfilling. It is creation.